Was I wrong to end my engagement after all this? Called off my engagement. What was the right call here? To give those prospective readers an idea of our background, my ex-fiancée and I have always had a decent dynamic. Charismatic, dancing in the kitchen, craft nights, cozy nights in. I moved in with her after 8 months and figured it would be good. I was helping take care of a pup, Maya. She committed to when we first started dating. She was all in. She helped me with a vehicle and bought it outright about 4 months in. They'll bring that up again later. While living together, I was running a landscaping company, and we would go on adventures to get bags and so on. I graduated my master's at the time and opened a clinic in a town nearby where I was renting before. I had this space prior to dating. This was a hard year for me, where I was traveling so much and trying to get the business going. We decided to look at homes nearby, and she helped clear me of some of my debts so we could have a clean bill. We even signed promissory notes and did it officially. There was talk of engagement with the house, although I never wanted that to be a reason that we did. There were some nights my partner would scream at me when I came home to her place. It didn't make me feel safe in place, and communication in the beginning was weird. Even an event where she paid for gas once, and then, because she did that, she didn't have to help with chores at my mother's cottage. Thank God it was just us two. Some entitlement with money. When we found the perfect home, I told her parents I was considering proposing and asked permission. Then during the house buying process, I felt very alone. She wasn't there till we couldn't sell and had to refinance. She then started gaslighting me under the stress, I presume. It was very hard. Due to this, I decided to not propose right away. I respectfully told her parents while we move in I will eventually, but needed some time. They were excited, of course, but didn't like this. They proceeded to go behind my back and ask her why I was holding off when she didn't know anything, which ended up with us going to counseling for 5 months. She also asked for money back for the vehicle. She said was okay not to pay back then out of anger. We were gaining respect and rebuilding communication again with counseling. I then decided to wait a few more months and proposed in our own backyard after I landscaped it. I was spending a lot of time with work and with some other business people, some woman, and she didn't like the late nights, although I communicated. I respected her boundaries and met with people for coffee instead. After proposing, we had a good couple of months, but then noticed some irritating behavior on her part. We went away on a camping trip, and I planned the whole thing, adapted the schedule to her, and there were moments where she didn't talk to me. Prior to that, in the February, we went to Philippines, and she didn't talk to me for a whole afternoon because I was working, but I own a business and needed to do something. We weren't doing much but being besides the pool. She also has this thing about returning the vacuum home from my business, and the day we were going to Spain, I hurt myself bad. She decided that instead of sympathizing, she would scream at me when I couldn't move my head because I didn't get some landscaping done and bring the vacuum back. I paid for the whole trip to make up for my debt. Leading into January, I had blood clots, inconclusive, and I was looking to her for support, and she was not really there, said it would get better, and it got worse, admitted myself to hospital, and felt like she didn't give me the love I needed. Only after hearing from my neighbor about how his GF was calling doctors to help him come to his MS diagnosis when it occurred, and helping him along the path. I hate comparing, but I did. She then went away for a police course for 2.5 months. I was left with our house, pets, and business. She would come home and say things like back from vacation. We got into an argument over the mortgage, which she contributed a big chunk to, and proceeded to call me a renter in her home, and also said about my work that if I was your mother and your dad worked as much as he did, I would have taken everything from him as well, like she did. Bad overshadowing. She made me jealous of a guy there by spending time with him, having him change her tire for her instead of asking me. She said to me on a date I organized that he gave her this weed pen, that he didn't want to say it in front of me, that it made him horny when he uses it, and asked me if that was weird. I'm like, yeah, for sure it is. Towards the end of her course, I wanted to revisit our conversation. I was struggling with a friend of mine who called off his bachelor I had organized, and randomly she said during Easter that my aunt thinks that you are out of my league. I reassured her that she was not accurate, and that she was equally amazing as a person. We went to revisit the conversations from before because they were bothering me, and it was a Friday from her coming home. She didn't say anything to me after asking about my mental health and me explaining some thoughts about the argument through Messenger. We had a civil night, not close, not apart kind of thing. We got into it the next day, and she told me your mood was so low that I was happier when you weren't home. I was crying. The most fucked up thing to say, I thought, and groveled. In the coming weeks, I had paid for another trip to Guatemala to again repay debts and celebrate her. But the argument and that reaction bothered me a lot. I told her that I thought I couldn't make her happy after being alone for 2.5 months at home. She explained that she felt alone and that I didn't react enough to her memes or reels during her time away. I did call her and she didn't say anything in these late calls and then would hang up on me or me her. I felt I did try. It was really awkward, honestly. Leading to our trip, she sent me a reel, how to love your wife properly. Something in me snapped. I said that she has no perception of the way people receive things when she says them, that she can be abrasive and cruel. That I was not excited to get married after just putting a deposit down on suit. I had a counseling session alone to figure it out, and we decided to go on the trip. We had a really good one day. Then it blew up. We argued, and I told her that she has put me in such a position to feel so alone and disrespected. She even said I wouldn't want to marry me either. We did a counseling session with our person there. It was tense and uncomfortable, but tried to enjoy the rest of the trip. She made a list of the things that she could improve, and I said I would think about it and just wanted to enjoy our hike up to this volcano. She didn't like that and made comments like, "Would you date so?" And so she took a photo of herself and said, "For my Tinder profile," and then, "How long would it take you to date again?" Very confusing and weird for me. At the top of the volcano, she asked to be intimate, and we did. Very odd. For the rest of the trip, we made the most of it and had an okay time. When we got back, I just wanted to unload. So the same day, because our flight was early, I went to Toronto to talk to my friends. The next day, she told me when I got back that her and Liam X had a conversation. I did ask details. I was really hurt by that, as it seemed spiteful. She called me while I was at the cottage. Meanwhile, me talking to my mom, sister, and brother-in-law about what to do, and how I was so lost in this mess of our situation. My sister had been talking to us while we were away, so she had an idea. They thought a lot of it was disrespectful. We were in limbo for about a week before I asked her to see her list and think about it. We decided to do counseling, which resulted in me seeing the messages to the ex. It was a super comfortable conversation. She wasn't flirting, but he was making her feel good, and when this came up, she said she would stop. Previously, when I saw the messages, it said, "Sorry, I am in trouble and can't speak to you. You wouldn't have known blah blah blah." Victim. We had a few fights in between counseling and yelling matches. She even at one point said, maybe there are other homes, but mentioned she wanted to stay. She even during one of our fights was on her phone during one of our conversations and was crying. In counseling, we worked on talking to each other, and she highlighted that my ex had emotionally abused me, and that also her words were harsh. My ex, of course, thought she was taking a beating. In the weeks onward, we worked on forgiveness, and I told her I did. Spicy. I don't know if it was destiny, but in the time we were kind of working on it, my neighbor I had never met had a conversation about her property to me. She showed me her home, took me around, and so I started to see if I would qualify. We did. We put in an offer and got accepted for way less. This was a hard conversation to have, but we did. She cried and said, "I can't believe this is our reality. We had a night of cuddling once." I always felt that my door was open for her, and she could come in at any time and speak to me if she wanted to, but she never really did. She even did a walkthrough and asked to come see the new place. Later that night, though, she told me she was dating, which was hard to hear. I took it as spite. It's now been 4 weeks since that moment. I was sad when I moved out and even wrote her a bunch of vulnerable messages saying we could work it out. She is done MO. And honestly, it feels like she didn't really want it. I'm going no contact as much as I can, but she does reach out for silly stuff. I moved nearby, and our neighbors are all close, so it will be hard, but eventually, I think in time it will be okay. Please give me your take on this situation. I feel she didn't want it honestly and was stressed by the situation.